There's been a strange shift online lately that I've begun to notice, and I'm sure that you have as well. Scroll long enough and you're gonna start finding entire timelines filled with AI generated animation clips. You have characters with faces that look slightly off, voices that almost sound right, and choreography and structure that feels borrowed from 100 different places at once. It's all quick, shiny, and loud enough to make you do a double take, but after a while there's this progressive emptiness that you start to notice. It's almost like you're watching movement without any intention behind it. That is probably a large part of why K-pop Demon Hunters blindsided me in the way that it did. It dropped me right into the middle of all that noise and reminded me what actual animation feels like. Not the novelty of look what this latest model can do, but the sensation of someone's imagination actually reaching out and grabbing you. Colour choices that feel like they came from a person's memory, not some prompt. Moments where a character's expression lands so specifically that you can tell an animator took a moment to think on whether the eyebrows should move just that little bit more. Now, that's not to say that this is the only animated film recently that has made me feel this way. In fact, there are several over the last few years. Films like The Mitchells vs. the Machines or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This is just the latest one to have rooted itself in my mind. If I had to summarise it best, I would say it's just alive in a way that I'd forgotten I missed. So let's talk about it. K-pop Demon Hunters doesn't ease you into things, it grabs you by the collar right from that opening scene. The film explodes into motion with this confident burst of colour and rhythm that feels like walking into a room where the music is already playing and the vibe has been set. There's an assertiveness to the way that it presents itself. Bright, loud and unapologetically stylised, like it knows exactly what it wants to be and it wastes no time in going there. The world breathes with this confident groove. Scenes glide into one another with an ever-present musical logic where the action hits like a snare drum and the quiet moments feel like someone muting the speakers just long enough for you to recollect yourself. The characters arrive in every shot with intention, with personality, like the animators knew how each girl would occupy the frame before they even spoke a line. And the film doesn't treat the visuals like set decoration either. Every neon splash, every exaggerated motion, every shift in expression feels like part of the emotional structure of this film. It's loud but not messy. It's stylized but not hollow. You get this growing sense that the people behind it were chasing the sensation of rhythm, the kind of feeling that makes you lean forward in your seat and lock in without fully realising why. Before the story ever gets close to kicking in, this film has a pulse to it. A mood, a spark, something that shows you it was shaped by visionaries that weren't afraid to wear their instinct on their sleeve and allow the film to let those instincts show us how it's done. While watching all of it unfold, something started to click for me. Not in a big dramatic way though, more like this quiet realisation that stood in the background. There's a texture to the film that feels personal. You can sense the choices being made underneath the surface, the little instincts that come from someone actually putting effort into how a moment might land. The more I sit with this feeling, even after multiple rewatches, the more I keep coming back to this idea that I have circling in my head. This is a film shaped by people, by their instincts, by their joy. It's all stuff that you can't automate, all the tiny decisions that don't come from data analysis or trend chasing. They come from experience, from taste, from someone wanting to express something and trusting that impulse enough to follow it. That's what gives the film that special little spark of energy, the edge, the pulse of it all. And it reminded me of something simple that I think we forget sometimes, and it's the very thesis statement behind this video existing in the first place. Life animates art. Now that's a concept that hits harder now more than ever, because when a film feels so vibrant and alive like this one does, it's not because everything is perfect on a technical level, it's because you can feel the people behind it all. Their fingerprints are in the DNA of this entire film. It's when you begin paying attention to the way the film moves that you can feel the decisions happening frame by frame. Not big flashy moments, although there are plenty of those, but the smaller things. The tiny flourishes that are only coming because of someone sitting there asking themselves what the moment should feel like, rather than simply thinking about what it's supposed to imitate. There's a way that the characters carry themselves that feels very specific to each individual girl. Rumi's confidence is written into her dialogue at the best of times, but it's also in the way she steps, the way she glides headfirst into a fight, fearing no aspect of it, the way her expressions can shift half a second earlier than you expect. It makes her feel like someone with a genuine internal rhythm, not a collection of poses shuffled together because the plot needed her to smile or frown on cue. Mira has it too, but in a completely different register. Her movements sit a little tighter, a little more controlled, like she's constantly trying not to reveal how much she's thinking. Even the way she studies people has this carefulness to it. You get the sense that an animator somewhere understood her emotional weight before they even put a pencil to paper or stylus to tablet, and that understanding shows in the most subtle of ways. Zoe's energy sits in a completely different lane from the other two, and you can see it immediately in the way she moves. There's this effortless agility to her that makes her feel like she's constantly improvising her way through a moment. She doesn't enter a scene so much as slide into it, always a little offbeat in the most charming of ways. Her hesitation has rhythm, her hands fidget when she's unsure, her posture dips just slightly when she's overwhelmed, and when she finally commits to something, her whole body follows that decision at once, like she's been waiting for permission to spring forward. You can tell the animators had a real sense of how to style her spark, that jittery enthusiasm that she tries so hard to keep under control. None of it feels exaggerated for the sake of comedy or archetype, although she is a naturally funny person. It feels human. Someone who's a little sincere, a little scattered, and trying her best to stand tall, even when her nerves get loud. And then there are these insane bursts of choreography where everything feels like it's being built from muscle memory. It's exaggerated at times, sure, but it's exaggerated with this sense of flavour, the kind of over-the-top approach that knows exactly where to push and where to hold back. You can almost picture the animation team standing up from their desks to act out the motion themselves, just trying to figure out where a character may distribute their weight or how far a spin should carry them. The action scenes especially feel guided by someone's instincts rather than references compiled by an algorithm. The timing has that natural snap that you only get when a human edits something until it feels right, not until it lines up perfectly with a template. Hits land with a rhythm that's closer to dance than combat, and it works because you can sense the people behind it chasing a feeling. Even the comedic moments have this handcrafted quality. Little eyebrow raises, eye quirks, overly dramatic pauses, these are choices made by someone who understands how timing can allow humour to breathe. What really sticks with me, the more I sit with this film, is how much emotion is threaded into the foundation of it all. Not in some grand, sweeping, sentimental way, more in the little choices, the quiet beats between characters, the way certain moments hold for just a second longer than you expect, the way the film makes room for vulnerability without underlining it in neon colours. Take the whole inner demon thing. On paper, it is a pretty familiar metaphor. Lots of stories have played with that, but the way K-pop Demon Hunters handles it feels personal. Not clinical, not tropey, not like someone grabbed the concept off of the shelf. The demons here feel like extensions of the girl's anxieties. Not just obstacles or added lore, but reflections of the messy, contradictory parts of them they don't always want to admit are there. Rumi's stubborn confidence has cracks running through it that become more visible as the film progresses. There are moments where you can see her trying a little too hard to keep the energy up, especially when things get overwhelming, and the film doesn't treat that like a weakness, it treats it like something real, something someone has actually lived. Mira's whole arc hits differently too. Her hesitance, her self-containment, the way she keeps everything a little too close to her chest, it never comes off as cliché. It feels as though the writers understood what it's like to be someone who processes things quietly, someone who carries more than they let on, someone who doesn't always know how to ask for help. There's truth there that you don't get from someone mixing narrative tropes together. That comes from people who've either felt it or loved someone who has. Even the group dynamic has that sense of authenticity to it. The girls tease each other, rely on each other, frustrate each other, but it's still grounded. It's not sitcom banter or prefab team personality types. It feels like the conversations you catch between friends when the camera isn't actually supposed to be recording. That kind of chemistry only happens when writers and animators are working from real interpersonal experience, not charts or archetypes. And the film's emotional highs don't come from spectacle, even though the spectacle is great. They come from the way the characters react to the world around them. The fear, the courage, the impulsiveness, the guilt, all of it lands because someone behind the scenes cared enough to shape those beats in a way that feels honest and genuine. There are a lot of layers to this film, and the more you peel back, the more you begin to feel the crowd of people behind it. It's not in a distracting way, as if you're noticing signs of an overcrowded production. It's more in that warm, almost invisible hum that runs underneath great animation. It's the sense that what you're looking at didn't come from a single mind or a single tool, but from a collective of artists who bounce ideas off of one another until something clicked. You can feel it in the way these designs evolve from scene to scene. The little touches in the background, the way that lighting shifts to support a tone or a moment without calling attention to itself. Those choices don't happen in isolation. That's the tireless work of layout artists, lighting artists, colour stylists, animators, supervisors, a whole network of people who layer their own sensibilities on top of each other until the moment feels whole. And when the film does break into those musical set pieces, you can practically sense the shared excitement from the team bleeding into the final product. The staging feels like collaboration. You can envision the animators comparing notes, passing clips around, tweaking movements because someone else found a better way to hit the same beat. That kind of synergy comes from the people behind the scenes trusting each other, knowing each other's strengths, and building something way bigger than what any one of them could have done alone. The same goes for the emotional beats. Story artists who shape the flow, directors who nudge the performances in specific directions, voice actors who give the characters a spark that animators can catch and potentially expand on. It's a fluid chain reaction where one simple creative choice opens the door for another, and another, and another. By the time it all lands in the final cut, you're looking at a collective of moments that have been touched and crafted by dozens upon dozens of hands, with each one adding something small, but essential. Even the visual style, with its confidence in blending textures, the stylized expressions, and the mix of digital precision and handcrafted exaggeration, feels like the outcome of a team that wasn't afraid to experiment a little. It feels like people were encouraged to try things, to push a little more out of themselves, to bring their own tastes into the room. You can tell when an artist and their team are given room to breathe, and my god, this film breathes. It's easy to forget how many lives have rippled through a single animated frame, how many ideas, how many instincts, how many tiny decisions stacked together until the moment begins to feel alive. This movie never lets that sentiment fade into the background. You can feel the humanity woven into the seams, in the timing, the style, and the warmth. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so incredibly special. It's the collective heartbeat running underneath everything. Let's step back and take a look at the bigger picture for a moment. That human heartbeat becomes even more noticeable when you do. Not because the film is trying to make some kind of statement about the state of animation, but because the world around it has just shifted so much. K-pop Demon Hunters exists at a time when feeds are overflowing with algorithmic made shorts, half-finished concepts rendered in a style that look familiar but doesn't feel anchored to anything real. And stuff that's impressive on a technical level, but sort of slips out of your mind the second you look away. And look, I don't think that's necessarily a sign that animation is dying or losing its soul or anything dramatic like that. Animation itself is fine, people are still making incredible work all of the time, but it does make the contrast clearer. It shows you how different it can feel when something is built from instinct and emotion instead of automation, from people who have actually lived through the emotions they're trying to capture. Watching it in that context almost does feel like a little reminder, this quiet nudge that art really does come alive when someone is actively working behind it. Someone who cares enough to tweak the timing of a shot, or reshape a character's beat, or chase a colour palette that doesn't make sense on paper but makes perfect sense in their heart. We're surrounded by so much content that's engineered to look polished and efficient and good enough, so when you have a film like this that bursts through with a sense of identity that doesn't feel compromised, it's incredibly refreshing. It isn't tricking the eye into thinking it's something that it's not matching a trend, it's doing what it wants to do, and doing it with heart. To go off on a traditional side tangent that these videos tend to have, I could sit here and say that I don't think the problem with AI art is that it exists, but then I'd be lying, because I do think that's a problem. It shouldn't exist. It flattens the idea of what art is, what it can be. It turns creativity into this mundane checklist or a simulation of feeling. Movies like this remind you that art isn't just the accuracy or replication to something. It's about the weird little sparks that come from the people who choose to let their ideas run wild. And that is something that no model can mimic, no matter how polished the output may be. I've seen this film 4 times now, and every one of those, I keep coming back to the feeling I had when it ended the first time. That sense of being reminded of something I didn't even know I'd forgotten in the first place. It's something simple, something I think is easy to lose sight of when everything feels like it's getting faster and noisier and more automated with every passing day. K-pop Demon Hunters is the sort of film that carries its creators inside of it. You can feel them in the timing of a joke, in the way that a character shifts their weight before a punch, in the colours that don't follow any strict logic but somehow feel just perfect. Every part of this film feels like it was affected by someone's instinct, someone's streak of personality, somebody's sense of what makes something worth holding on to. And that, after all of it, is what stays. It's more than the infectious songs and the energy of each scene. It's the people behind it all, the lives that have quietly shaped it. To circle back and bring it all home, this whole video revolves around that one idea, that one that I dropped just a little bit earlier. Life animates art. It really, truly does. That's what gives this avenue of storytelling the pulse. Sure, the landscape around animation is changing, the tools are evolving, workflows are being cut and crunched, but as long as artists are given the chance to pour pieces of themselves into the things they make and the things they love, whether it be their instincts, their imperfections, or their joy, we're going to continue to get stories that feel alive. Stories that feel like someone cared.